Hello and good day. This is Jason, the History Freak. Well, welcome to another exciting episode of The History Freak. This time, revisiting polar exploration and the collection thereof, Part 2. No, it's not really snowing, but in 2021, we've got a lot of surprises in store for you, including a new fleet of micro drones to help with filming. We'll show a little more footage of what they're capable of at the end of this episode, but just imagine the footage we can capture of historical sites. And the snow effect here represents new software we're incorporating to help tell things in a historical context. Our very special VIP guest lecturer today is Bob. Bob is a friend of the show and has a background in signal detection and the aerospace industry. One of his passions is a knowledge of and expertise in exploration of all kinds, not just of the stars. Polar exploration is of particular interest to him, and he knows a lot about the voyages of Shackleton, Scott, and many others, exploring the poles, the last frontier of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. So feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy a more free-flowing discussion with Bob, interviewed a few weeks ago by our own Jerry, our IT consultant here at the History Freak. So enjoy and stay in the past.
I think he made a lot of big mistakes. First of all, they did an analysis afterwards. They would have never made this whole expedition would have ended in failure. They would have never made it. When they looked at the food supplies and the distances and the dog, they would have never made it. They would all died like Scott.
Interesting.
It was finally achieved in 1955 by a British team, but by then there was new technology. They might have dropped the caches of food by plane. They had communication equipment. If you got really stuck, they could probably fly it and pick you up, get you out of there. But they wouldn't have made it.
Bob referenced Sir Vivian Fuchs, who led the first successful overland expedition of the Antarctic in the 1950s.
Oh, here's Ross Island. They got it blown up, and they had huts. Scott had a hut here, and then when Shackleton went back, Scott told him not to stay in that hut, so they built another hut down here, I think.
And what were these huts like?
Well, to staging areas where they would, get everything together, get the dogs trained, acclimated. The thing, Asmussen, Shackleton did, instead of taking dogs into expedition, they took Mongolian ponies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did they get the Mongolian ponies down there?
I don't know. I bet they're a little pissed off. Hey, this ain't Mongolia.
And here's a bold signed album page by Shackleton.
they'd go to, there's a little island here. Yeah, Ross Island. They'd start here, and then they'd move up to try to get to the South Pole. I think it's about 750 miles. Kind of rough. This was the Shackleton plan. He was going to come down, and he was going to sledge all the way across to the South Pole and then down to Ross Island.
Yeah.
But they couldn't carry enough food for that expedition. So the other part of his party, they were going to sledge and lay depots of caches of food in various spots. I don't know, 100 miles apart, that Shackleton would get as he came across. Because he never got to the landing spot because his ship, got stuck in the ice, and then the Wendell ice it kind of rotates in a clockwise way, and then eventually goes up and it kind of melts off. So you can see the pathway of the. Here's where the ship was stuck, and then they were on this iceberg for I don't know, about 9 months, and they finally got to. Elephant Island. I think, right there. And his epic voyage on that 22.5-foot lifeboat was from here to South Georgia Island, where it was it's a British island, but it was also used for whaling.
A signed letter by Raymond Priestley, geologist aboard the Scott and Shackleton expeditions.
The whaling, the idea was to get to the whaling station that he had visited on the way down. That was occupied by the Norwegians, and so he never made it. And in this epic struggle, 3 men died. One was there's a picture of him. I mean, their struggles were just as immense, laying out these. Okay, he was the leader of that expedition. This Captain McIntosh. He died. He was classified in the book classified as stubborn and pig-headed. And get how he died, but there's a picture of Spencer Smith, Reverend Spencer Smith, who died of scurvy. They just couldn't save him. Yeah. Anyhow, it's in there somewhere.
Right.
Picture of him. So McIntosh and another guy, they died. They got all the way back to.
And here's another signed first day cover envelope by Priestley.
From Ross Island to get to the actual Antarctica, it's about 17 miles. And depending, you can walk, you can get across, sledge across, but the ice has to be frozen. Now, quite often the ice is frozen, but then the wind comes up and breaks it down. So they get all the way. The rest of the party got all the way to the edge of to get to Ross Island, and the rest of the parties, they warned McIntosh and this other guy. He says, "No, it isn't safe to do it," but he says, "Oh, I think I can do it." It's like 17 miles. It's you get to the island. There's better accommodations there. I mean, there's no 5-star hotels. But anyhow, they went across. They never found their bodies again. They were gone.
Wow.
But that was the.
And what's that book right there? Which one is it? Oh, Shackleton's Forgotten Men. That looks like a little bit of history.
Yeah.
Do you know when that book was written, or?
It was written, yeah, I can get it. Well, it was written in the year 2000.
Gotcha.
Now, he got to, there was one guy, I definitely remember him. He was a young guy named Dick Richards. He had just graduated from college, and he had a degree, and he was going to be a teacher.
So what did he, so tell me about that guy?
Yeah, Dick Richards. Yeah, he signed on. And, he was very good at, they were looking for, strong young males that had mechanical capabilities. And he fit the bill. He signed on, and he was one of the saviors of the expedition. But this guy interviewed him all the way to 1976. He was like 84 years old, and nothing had been written about this. Because they thought there was a lot of mismanagement, and just like with the Scott expedition.
A postcard showing the fateful Scott Terra Nova expedition.
Why these people died, they thought it was mismanagement and scurvy, so they didn't want to, they wanted to kind of hide it.
And here's a signed note by Apsley Cherry Garrard, author of The Worst Journey in the World.
But anyhow,
Was Shackleton a leader in other ways beyond just the Antarctica stuff, or?
he was well, you say he went to this college, but he ended when he was 16. He became a merchant seaman for 20 years, so he had a lot of experience in being on the sea. And then Captain Scott picked him, Lieutenant Shackleton, to go on this expedition to the South Pole about 1907 or something like that.
A wonderful specimen of a sepia-tone photograph of the first Baron, Mount Evans, accompanies a signed photograph of the legendary naval officer.
Him and Scott and one other guy, Dr. Wilson, who was a close friend of Captain Scott.
Here's an original listing of the paintings of Edward Adrian Wilson, who perished in the Antarctic with Scott. And here's a poster of the Great White South, the photography of Herbert Ponting.
Anyhow, one thing they did, the dogs all died. They didn't know how to train the dogs, and then Shackleton and Scott didn't get along. Scott was a classic Navy guy. Like when he went down there on the ship, everything, all the officers and seamen were all separated.
Reginald William Skelton was a member of Scott's discovery expedition to the Antarctic, 1901 to 1904. A beautiful signed photograph.
Like they had to have two pianos, one for the officers and one for the enlisted men. But when Shackleton did his voyage, he got rid of all that stuff.
Yeah. And there was something else I wanted to ask about Shackleton. Oh, so there were probably a lot of other people that went to Antarctica after Shackleton, right? I mean, there's been a lot of people since, but what was his main contribution, do you think, to other people that?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's all countries that they used to land at various parts of the periphery, and then try to claim that this was
land for their country.
A signed note by Australian explorer Hubert Wilkins. And a carte de visite and lovely note in French by the famous French explorer of the poles, Charcot.
They have, what a sector is, and in a circle.
Yeah.
The idea was, if you landed on the coast and you surveyed it, you could point to the center, and all that land would be on the property of the country that they were represented.
Wow.
So it's all disputed. Britain tried to claim the whole thing for themselves, and I think the United States tried to claim, remember Admiral Byrd?
Here's a signed photograph of Charles Lofgren, who served aboard the Admiral Byrd expedition.
He used to fly over and drop flags and little markers, with the United States, claiming that this was now United States land. They called it Little America. But there's a big base down there in McMurdo Sound, which is, it's over here near Ross Island. There's maybe 1,000 people there, at least in the summertime. And then there's a lot of countries that come in during the summer, and then they leave during the winter. But the United States, supported by the National Foundation, has built a research station right at the South Pole.
Oh, okay. Exactly at the South Pole.
South Pole. They do a lot of research and all kinds of things. Even astronomy is done down there, neutrino astronomy. In the summer there's maybe 300 people there, and in the winter it might dwindle down to maybe 30. The people that need to maintain it and some of the scientists.
Yeah.
It was one thing was in the news. There was a doctor. There was a doctor down there, and she developed breast cancer, and they tried everything to mitigate it, and then they finally. The New York National Air Guard had this special plane that went down there in the dead of winter. Never shut the engines off. Just landed for about 15 minutes, and picked her up, and dropped off another doctor, plus some equipment and food and all that stuff, and got her out of there. That was in the news. That was about the year 2000.
Oh, cool.
But they, the Chinese have their eye on. It's envisioned that there's billions of tons of coal down there, uranium. Wouldn't be easy to get, but you determined to get it. But I think the United Nations, nothing has been settled about who owns what, but I think it's all been put on hold till sometime in the 2036 or something like that. It's a long. I got another book, The Whole History of Antarctica. It's originally probably discovered by a Russian guy, a Russian expedition. But it's kind of hard to know if you've really seen the land or you're just seeing ice things, that are surrounding the.
And what was the significance? Shackleton was the first person to document exploration down there, right?
No, a Norwegian explorer, and he's an interesting guy too. He came from upper middle class surroundings. His mother wanted him to be a doctor, but this guy was determined. There were three big goals in the around the turn of the century. One is to solve the Northwest Passage. In other words, get a ship from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific. Going through the top of Canada.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah, the Northwest.
I mean, it was tried. People died trying it.
And here's a wonderful old photo, an original signature of Francis Leopold McClintock, the polar explorer who discovered the fate of the Franklin expedition. As Bob alluded to, Franklin sought the fabled Northwest Passage.
And the other one was to get to the North Pole and get to the South Pole. So this guy to get acclimated, he grew up in Norway. It's kind of a cold country.
Yeah.
He used to leave the window open in his home just to be cold. So then him and another guy go trekking across Norway. In this cold country. It's like Alaska, maybe not as bad as that, but he finally interesting. He finally got a ship. They were ready. He had all these people that he owed money to. They were ready to grab him as he left port. He just, the hell with them, I'm out of here. And he started on his voyage. Spent 2 seasons frozen in on the top of, in Canada. He was living with the Inuit, learning he was getting to be an expert with dogs and how to live in the cold.
And the Canadian Vilhjalmur Stephenson lived in the Arctic Circle with the indigenous peoples there. Here's a wonderful typed letter signed by Stephenson.
But he the first guy to get to the North Pole, someone in dispute. And the first man to fly over the North Pole in a dirigible was this Italian guy, Nobilis. Didn't get the Italians in the way; they didn't get along at all. But they did fly over. But he was going to apparently go to the North Pole, and he said to South America, and then he decided to go to the South Pole. And about the same time, Scott was going, so it was like a race. Now this guy, they brought expertly trained dogs. He knew what he was doing, and he made it like 2 weeks before Scott. And Scott got there. They could see they were good skiers too. Scott there, you could see the skis drag so, and and they came back. They all made it, and then Scott got there, and then they didn't make it back. They all died. The last 3 died within about 12 miles of a depot.
Wow.
But then Shackleton, his idea was the last great expedition was a trans-Antarctica expedition, going from the Windless Sea all the way to the Ross Sea.
Wow.
And, it was like 1,500 miles. And then these guys were going to land at depot, and they did land it. They died. They almost killed themselves laying the depots of food.
I certainly hope you've enjoyed hearing Bob and seeing original autographs and manuscripts of polar exploration. Before we go, we've got one more surprise for you, an incredible handwritten letter, a rare treat in polar collecting. From Scott's Terra Nova expedition, a letter of historical importance. This is a handwritten letter from January of 1920 in the form of an autographed note from Victor Campbell to Silas Wright, both of the Terra Nova expedition, regarding the response to a question about the time kept by the Northern Party in comparison with the main party, even though they had been in different time zones. Lieutenant Campbell was first officer of the Terra Nova expedition. After being forced to winter in an ice cave Campbell's party finally reached Cape Evans after learning of the death of Scott and his entire polar party. As the senior remaining naval officer, Campbell assumed command of the Terra Nova expedition for its final remaining weeks. And don't miss what's coming to the History Freak in 2021. The History Freak presents incredible aerial drone footage from our fleet of micro drones. And as I always say, stay in the past.